small, bustling town of Bantima, life moved at a steady rhythm, with the familiar sights and sounds of market vendors, children playing, and villagers going about their daily routines. At its heart were two childhood friends, Yakubu and Tito, each standing at a pivotal juncture in their lives. Though they had grown up together, the choices they were about to make would lead them down two very different paths. Yakubu, introspective and gentle, felt the weight of a divine calling pulling at his heartstrings. He was being drawn toward Afinso, a remote and perilous village known for its hostility toward outsiders. The mission before him was daunting, but the pull of obedience to God's voice was stronger. Tito, on the other hand, was an ambitious and charismatic young man, eager to leave his humble beginnings behind. His sights were set on securing a political position through his alliance with the influential Chief Opia. To Tito, power and wealth promised the fulfillment he sought. Two friends. Two roads. One journey would lead to unimaginable fulfillment, while the other would end in loss and regret. The question remained, what choices would they make, and what would their lives teach those who watched their stories unfold? It was a bright Sunday morning, and the little church in Bantima overflowed with worshippers. The wooden pews creaked under the weight of the congregation, and the air buzzed with an expectant energy. Preacher Obad, a man of deep conviction, ascended the pulpit with a worn Bible in hand, his voice resonating with authority as he delivered his message. Who will go for the Lord? Who will stand in the gap for those who reject him? His words cut through the air like a blade. The harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. The question is, are you willing to obey when God calls you? Seated at the back of the church, Yakubu felt an unshakable stirring in his heart. Preacher Obad's words resonated deeply within him, igniting a fire he couldn't extinguish. Beside him, Tito shifted uncomfortably, his mind elsewhere. While Yakubu wrestled with the weight of the preacher's challenge, Tito's thoughts wandered to his upcoming meeting with Chief Opia, a meeting that could catapult him into the realm of power and influence he had always craved. After the service, Yakubu lingered in the church, deep in thought. That night, as the stars shone brightly over Bantima, he knelt by his bed in prayer. Lord, he whispered, his voice trembling, I feel you calling me to Afinso, but I'm afraid. The people there hate Christians. What if they harm me? What if I fail? Please give me the courage to follow your will. Across town, Tito sat in a dimly lit room with Chief Opia, his confidence unshaken. Don't worry, Chief, Tito said with a sly smile. I know how to rally the youth and secure the vote you need. This election is as good as ours. Chief Opia leaned back in his chair, his tone laced with approval. Good. If you deliver, there's a place for you in my administration. Your future will be bright, Tito. As Tito bathed in the promise of success, Yakubu's heart grew heavier with the call he knew he couldn't ignore. The following morning, as the sun bathed the marketplace in golden light, Yakubu sought out Tito. The two friends often met here to talk about their dreams, but today's conversation carried a different weight. Tito, Yakubu began, his voice steady but earnest, I need to tell you something. I feel God calling me to Afinso to share the gospel. Tito froze, his expression a mixture of disbelief and concern. Afinso. Are you serious? That place is cursed, Yakubu. They hate outsiders, especially Christians. You'll be walking into a death trap. Yakubu nodded, acknowledging the danger. I know it's risky, but what if someone there is waiting to hear about Jesus? What if God wants to use me to change their lives? Tito scoffed, shaking his head. You're wasting your time, and maybe your life. Look at me, Yakubu. I'm working with Chief Opia to secure real power. When he wins, I have the resources to make a real difference in people's lives. Preaching to hostile villagers won't change anything. Yakubu sighed, recognizing Tito's determination to follow a different path. I've made up my mind, Tito. I have to obey God's call, no matter the cost. Tito shrugged, unwilling to argue further. Suit yourself, Yakubu. Just don't say I didn't warn you. At dawn the next day, Yakubu packed a small bag with his Bible, a few clothes, and a water bottle. The journey ahead was long, and as he set out, his heart wavered between fear and faith. The road to Afinso was dusty and treacherous, winding through dense forest and rugged terrain. As the hours passed, doubts crept into Yakubu's mind. He paused under a towering tree, dropping his bag to the ground, and lifted his face toward the heavens. Lord, he prayed aloud, his voice breaking, I'm scared. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, but I trust you. Please go before me and prepare their hearts to receive your word. When Yakubu finally reached Afinso, he was met with cold stares and whispered insults. Children peeked out from behind their mothers, pointing at the stranger who had dared to enter their village. Despite the hostility, Yakubu remained undeterred. He began by serving the community, helping an elderly woman fetch water, assisting with farm work, and caring for a sick child using basic remedies. Slowly, the villagers' hardened hearts began to soften. One evening, the village chief approached him, his gaze sharp and questioning. Young man, he said, his tone edged with suspicion, why are you here? We've chased away every Christian who has come before you. Yakubu met the chief's gaze, his voice steady but humble. I came because God loves this village. He wants you to know his peace. He wants you to know that there is only one true God, one faith, one baptism, and one true church, which is the Lord's church. The chief stared at him in silence for a long moment before walking away. Though he said nothing, Yakubu sensed that a seed had been planted. Over the weeks that followed, Yakubu's kindness and persistence transformed the village. The once hostile villagers began to embrace the gospel, and even the chief became a believer. Afinso was no longer a place of fear but a beacon of hope and faith. Back in Bantima, Tito's rise to power seemed unstoppable. He organized rallies, made promises, and painted a vision of prosperity that swayed many of the townsfolk to support Chief Opia's campaign. His confidence grew with each passing day. But then, the unthinkable happened. On the night of the election results, the air was thick with anticipation. Tito stood by Chief Opia's side as the votes were announced. The winner of the election, the announcer declared, is Kwame Asante. A wave of disbelief swept through the crowd. Chief Opia's face darkened, and Tito felt his stomach drop. The loss was staggering. Chief Opia turned to Tito, his voice cold and unforgiving. You told me this election was ours. You failed, Tito. Don't ever contact me again. Tito was devastated. Everything he had worked for, the connections, the prestige, the rewards, was gone in an instant. The townspeople who once praised him now whispered about his failure. To make matters worse, a wealthy investor had come to Bantima during the election period looking for a young leader to mentor. He had observed Tito's aggressive and self-serving tactics and decided to choose someone else. Take a moment and subscribe. Click this button to be the first to get notification when a video is uploaded. You can like and share as well to keep this community growing. Come on. Let's do this together. Tito's world began to unravel. His once confident strides turned into aimless wandering through the streets of Bantima, his mind plagued by thoughts of what might have been. When Yakubu returned to Bantima, his story spread like wildfire. The tales of how a hostile village had been transformed by his obedience to God captivated everyone. Soon, he was invited to share his testimony at a regional Christian conference. Standing before a crowd of hundreds, Yakubu spoke with humility and conviction. I was afraid when God called me to offenso. I doubted myself, but I trusted him. When we obey his call, he goes before us and does the impossible. The joy I found in serving him is greater than anything the world can offer. Among the audience was Tito, sitting in the back, his head bowed in shame. As he listened to Yakubu's testimony, tears welled up in his eyes. The stark contrast between his friend's fulfilled life and his own shattered dreams was unbearable. After the service, Tito approached Yakubu, his voice trembling. "Yakubu," he began, "I was wrong. I mocked you, and I chased after power. But you followed God and gained so much. I want what you have. I want to start over." Yakubu smiled warmly, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. "It's not too late, Tito. God's mercy is new every morning. Surrender your plans to him, and he will guide you." The days following the conference were a time of deep reflection for Tito. He found himself drawn back to the little church in Bantima, the same place where Preacher Obad's words had once fallen on deaf ears. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tito knelt at the altar, tears streaming down his face. "Lord," he prayed, his voice breaking, "I thought I could create my own success, but I was wrong. I see now that everything I pursued was empty. Please forgive me and guide me to the life you want me to live." Preacher Obad, who had been silently watching from the back of the church, approached Tito with a kind smile. "God's grace is sufficient, my boy," he said gently. "He doesn't waste a single tear. Your failure can become the foundation for something greater if you let him lead." From that moment, Tito began to change. He sought guidance from Yakubu and Preacher Obad, immersing himself in prayer and scripture. Though the road was not easy, Tito found a peace he had never known before. While Tito was rebuilding his life, Yakubu's work in Nyambukia continued to flourish. The village, once shrouded in darkness and hostility, had become a community of faith and hope. The village chief, who had initially been one of Yakubu's greatest opponents, became an evangelist, boldly sharing his testimony. "I once thought Christianity was a lie," he told his people, "but Yakubu's actions showed me the truth. He risked his life to help our children and care for our sick. Through his kindness, I found Christ." Families that had been torn apart by conflict were now reconciled. The village began to thrive as faith brought unity and purpose. Yakubu's obedience had sparked a revival that extended far beyond offenso. One day, as Yakubu was teaching a group of children under a large tree, a familiar figure appeared in the distance. It was Tito. As they embraced, Tito's eyes were filled with gratitude. "I came to thank you, Yakubu," Tito said. "Your courage inspired me to turn back to God. I was so blinded by ambition, but your example has shown me what truly matters." Yakubu smiled, his voice gentle. "It's never too late to follow God's call, Tito. What matters is that you're here now, ready to serve him." With Yakubu's encouragement, Tito began using his natural talents for organization and leadership to serve God. He started a community outreach program in Bantima, focusing on helping unemployed youth find jobs and offering free literacy classes. Through his work, Tito shared his story of failure and redemption, using his mistakes to guide others. "I chased after power and lost everything," he often told his audience. "But when I turned back to God, he gave me a new purpose." Don't waste your life chasing things that don't last. Seek first the kingdom of God, and everything else will follow. The outreach program grew rapidly, touching countless lives. One day, the wealthy investor who had once overlooked Tito returned, impressed by the transformation he saw. "Tito," the investor said, "I see now that you're a man of integrity and vision. Let's work together to expand this program and help even more people." Take a moment and subscribe. Click this button to be the first to get notification when a video is uploaded. You can like and share as well to keep this community growing. Come on. Let's do this together. God's call brings eternal rewards. Yakubu obeyed God's call to Afinso, despite fear and uncertainty. His faith and obedience led to the transformation of an entire village. Matthew 6 verses 19 to 20, Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Yakubu chose heavenly rewards over earthly comfort. Hebrews 11 verse 6, And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Yakubu's faith in God's reward drove him to act courageously. Worldly ambition can lead to emptiness. Tito chased political power and prestige, believing it would fulfill him, but he was left with failure and regret. Tito's ambitions brought temporary satisfaction but ultimately left him empty. Ecclesiastes 2 verses 10 to 11, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired, I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind, nothing was gained under the sun. Mark 8 verse 36, For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? Tito's pursuit of power cost him peace and integrity. Failure can lead to redemption. After losing everything, Tito repented and found purpose in serving others through the community outreach program. Proverbs 24 verse 16, For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. Tito's failure became the foundation for his redemption. Psalm 51 verse 17, My sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart you, God, will not despise. Tito's broken spirit led him back to God. It's never too late to obey God. Tito's transformation demonstrated that God's grace is available even after failure. Job 2 verses 12 to 13, Even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Rend your heart and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he relents from sending calamity. Tito returned to God with a repentant heart and found new purpose. Luke 15 verse 20, But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Like the prodigal son, Tito was embraced by God after his return. Kindness speaks louder than words. Yakubu's act of kindness softened the villagers' hearts and opened the door for the gospel. 1 Peter 3:15-16, But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. Matthew 5 verse 16, In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Yakubu's gentle and respectful actions testified to his faith. His good deeds glorified God and transformed the village. Proverbs 19 verse 22, What is desired in a man is kindness, and a poor man is better than a liar. Yakubu's kindness in Afinso softened the hearts of the villagers, allowing the gospel message to take root. 1 Peter 2 verse 12, Live such good lives among the pagans that, though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. Yakubu's actions were his testimony, breaking down barriers of hostility in the village. True success lies in God's will. Matthew 6 verse 33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Yakubu's focus on God's calling led to eternal impact, while Tito's pursuit of worldly success brought failure. Psalm 37 verses 4-5, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him and he will do this. By committing to God's purpose, Yakubu found true fulfillment, contrasting Tito's empty pursuit of power. God restores the humble. James 4 verse 10, humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. After Tito humbled himself and repented, God restored his purpose and used him to impact his community. Isaiah 57 verse 15, for this is what the high and exalted one says, he who lives forever, whose name is holy, I live in a high and holy place, but also with the one who is contrite and lowly in spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. God's mercy toward Tito reflects his willingness to revive those who come to him in humility. Eternal impact or temporary gains. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 18, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Yakubu's work in Afinso had eternal rewards, while Tito's initial ambitions were fleeting and ultimately unsatisfying. Matthew 16 verse 26, what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Tito's pursuit of power contrasts sharply with Yakubu's eternal focus, underscoring the importance of prioritizing God's will over worldly success. Brethren, the Lord is calling. Will you go for him? I will. I don't know about you. Take a moment and subscribe. Click this button to be the first to get notification when a video is uploaded. You can like and share as well to keep this community growing. Come on. Let's do this together.